Thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout, and I think it's a worthy topic for a great turnout. We're announcing today that we are asking the legislature to increase its appropriation for school safety, primarily police officers in our schools, to $180 million. And the details of the calculation will be given to you by Mike Kirkenbach, our chief of school safety. But I'll talk to you a little bit about the need and a little bit of history. First, I want to introduce who's here with us. The ones that will speak are County Superintendent Shelley Boggs, Chief Chigoya, besides myself, and of course there will be a time to answer your questions. In addition, we have with us Tolleson Police Chief Rudy Mendoza, who's also president of the West Valley Chiefs Association, Surprise Police Chief Evan Beecher, El Mirage Chief Paul Marzoka, Goodyear Chief Chip Kirk, and Goodyear Lieutenant Sean Tyler. And we're delighted to have such a good support from law enforcement who recognize this tremendous need. The demand has increased for more police in the schools, and we need to meet that demand. It would be a tragedy not to meet that demand. Last night, a student was caught burying a gun under a school, next to a school. It illustrates the problem. Serious problems continue. When I took office in January of 2023, there were 190 police officers in our schools. My nightmare was that a maniac would invade a school, kill 20 kids, as has happened in other states and could happen here, and there's no police officer to protect the students. So I went on a strong campaign to urge more schools to accept the police officers that we in the Department of Education pay for. All they have to do is accept them, and we pay for them. And by doing that, we have increased the number from 190 to 573 police officers in our schools. But next year we're expecting a bigger expansion, and we need to provide for that. The wisdom of that expansion is illustrated by one of the very last people that was hired, not in the regular request for proposals, but a supplemental one we did because we found some extra money when schools didn't start right away. So we wanted to get as much money out as possible. So we did an extra request, and there was a police officer who was at a school for only 2 weeks. His name is Officer Bonanno. And a man went into the school with a gun and a knife in a gym with 20 kids, as it happens, 20 kids. And he said he was going to kill them to make them famous. And luckily, Officer Bonanno was there to avoid an unbelievable tragedy. The students would have been gone. The parents would have never recovered. I know that because I lost a child. And we're very lucky that we avoided that catastrophe. And I think, given that, every parent in this state should want to have a police officer in their children's school, because we need to be protected. These things happen, and they need to be protected. Some that rejected, even though we said we would pay for it, said they wanted gun-free schools. Well, saying that you're a gun-free school is like saying, I'm an easy victim, come get me, because there's no one there to protect me. There are no massacres at police stations because the police can protect themselves, and we owe it to our students to protect them, and our teachers and our staff. We owe it to them to protect them, just as the police in their police stations are protected. So for reasons that will be given in detail by Mike Kirkenbach, we're anticipating an expansion in the number of police that are needed by the schools. We don't want to ever have to deny them. We've never have denied it. Every school that's asked for a police officer has gotten one. And we don't want to, in the future, ever have to deny a police officer to a school and then have a catastrophe happen because there was not enough money to pay for that police officer. And so that's the reason for the appropriation that we are requesting of the legislature. I'm going to turn it over now to Maricopa Superintendent Shelley Boggs.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Today I stand alongside State Superintendent Tom Horne, as well as some of our top law enforcement officers, to emphasize the responsibility that we all have to protect our students and ensure every child feels safe when they walk into school every morning. Nothing is more important than the safety and well-being of our students. When school safety is uncertain, it affects every aspect of a child's education. That's why we must continue to take real, proven, actionable steps to make our schools safe for every student. Steps taken by the legislature, such as allowing retired law enforcement officers to serve in our schools, has proven to be effective. Continuing and growing the funding for our school safety program is essential. We need to do more. We need to expand the presence of school resource officers across the state to ensure they are in every school. No school that requests one should be denied. These officers do so much to provide security for our students. They are the first responders when a crisis arises. SROs are an essential part of creating safe schools for every student, and we must support them in every way possible. I will continue to advocate for legislation for school resource officers and our school safety programs. This is about ensuring that every student in every school, in every neighborhood, has the peace of mind that comes from knowing they are safe. We must continue working together, state leaders, legislative members, local districts, families, and communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And Shelley mentioned a bill that we had actually proposed to the legislature to enable retired police officers to serve as school resource officers or school safety officers. And that's one of the reasons we have much more capacity, because that was one of our restrictions, was not enough police officers that the police stations could afford to give to our schools. Now with retired police officers available, there's no shortage, and that's one of the reasons that expansion is going to be possible, and we're expecting an expanded demand. Next is Chief Chigoya.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good morning, I'm Paul Chigoya, and I'm here to say a couple of words on behalf of Sheriff Jerry Sheridan and the men and women of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. I'm sure that the words I speak, my peers will also share the sentiments. The school safety program is a top job, and keeping kids safe is our first duty. And so back in February, Sheriff Sheridan made a change at the Sheriff's Office where deputy sheriffs were only able to work in communities that were in the incorporated areas that had schools. Now he's opened it up and paved the way for deputy sheriffs to work throughout Maricopa County communities to keep kids safe. More deputies are signing up for this program, and they are trained and ready to act fast in the event that it is needed. But this work takes funds, and so we're asking the local state legislators and the governor to fund this program because it's important work. The safety of kids is not a side job, it's a top job, and we're ready to do it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. So now we're going to hear from Mike Kirkenbach. Mike Kirkenbach was the assistant police chief for the city of Phoenix, and we're very lucky to have him as our head of school safety. And Mike will explain the calculations that went into the fact that we're going to need the $180 million. Mike?
Thank you, Superintendent. Good morning, everyone. As Superintendent Horne said, my name is Mike Kirkenbach. I serve as the Director of School Safety here at the Arizona Department of Education, a position that I was appointed to after spending just under 33 years with the Phoenix Police Department. I want to explain the why we are here today and the why behind this ask. So one of the programs that Superintendent Horne trusts me with is a school safety program. In that program, I get to work with law enforcement executives like you see here and school leaders to provide resources to their schools, resources that they request, and resources that are critically needed. The school safety program is governed by Arizona Revised Statute 15-154. It's been on the books since 1994. As of 2018, the program was a $12 million appropriation. In 2018, it funded is a $12 million appropriation providing SROs and JPOs in 113 schools. In 2019, the legislature added school counselors and social workers. As we stand here today, we have $128.3 million that's awarded to 1,153 schools throughout our state. And I want to break that down a little bit more so you understand those numbers, because those are big numbers. Within that total, you have grants awarded to 498 SROs covering 540 schools. Now, as you've heard the superintendent say, and the chiefs will back me up, there aren't enough cops to meet the demand. That's why, and we're grateful to the legislature for signing House Bill 2074, which now allows us to put school safety officers in the schools. Now, these are full authority peace officers like the men that you see here, albeit operating in an off-duty capacity. 263 of those schools are serviced by school safety officers, or SSOs, if I slip into that acronym. In fact, Dr. Kathy Johnson, who's here today, and her team trained those SSOs. There's 90 of them that are being trained at this very moment, and they've trained 1,034 just since July 15th of this year. It shows you the need in the program. In addition to the school resource officers, the program also funds, as I mentioned, school counselors and school social workers. So through that, we have 588 counselors and social workers that are funded, covering 613 schools. That $128 million, if you ask, how did you get there? It's an $82 million appropriation. Here's how. Superintendent Horne challenged me to get more resources in schools. And in years past, as those resources were awarded, they didn't necessarily get filled. You did have SSO codified into law. You didn't have retirees. Counselor or social worker positions were unfilled, so those funds were returned back to the state, sitting in the proverbial bank. What we identified working with our CFO is about $47 million that was available to be allocated. So working with the Arizona Department of Administration, we released a mid-cycle grant. This is normally a 3-year grant. So in the fall of 2024, midway through this grant, we released $47 million additional dollars. After the State Board of Education approved the awarding of those funds, we filled those additional positions. As wonderful as that is, and as Superintendent Horne said, every officer request was filled. We have 361 counselor and social worker requests that were not filled because there simply is not enough money. That leads us to yet another grant. Another grant is the Federal Stronger Connections Grant. That provides $20 million for SSOs, school safety officers, largely in small and rural schools throughout the state. That grant is set to expire September of 2026. 45 schools is what they're providing officers to right now, small and rurals. Whereas the SSP, the School Safety Program grant, is set to expire 6/30 of 26. So the why behind the $180 million request, if you're doing the math with me, is that you have $128 million that's out there right now. You have 361 requests for counselors and social workers that were unfilled. If you use baseline total compensation, that's about an extra $25 million to fulfill all those requests. You have the $20 million Stronger Connections grant that will expire next year. And as I've gone throughout the state, recently in La Paz County, Coconino County, up in Navajo, working with our tribes, there is significant demand for growth. And what Superintendent Horne is committed to and I'm committed to doing is ensuring that those resource needs are met.
Thank you, Mike. Now we're open for questions. And if you have a question about the calculation of the numbers, please direct it to Mike.
Well, of course, you mentioned training, Superintendent, you're mentioning, the money for training. I can't help but think about that horrible situation with a deadly knife attack. And apparently the kid was able to get his knife past the detection equipment. What about funding for detection equipment?
Yes, the last bill that passed the legislature provided that if there's money left over after we satisfy the needs for police officers in the schools, schools can use that for equipment.
Okay. Will it be enough? Is there enough residual
Well,
dollars for detection?
that's the best question I could get. We tried to arrive at a number that will be enough. I realize that it'll sound large at the legislature. That's why we're doing this press conference, and we hope it will be enough.
Have you been in touch with Senator Bullock and her proposal for a school safety bill?
I haven't personally, but our liaisons probably are.
Horne, last year there was an audit that said schools weren't up to standards for emergency plans. Is this still the case? Is this still something schools need to work on? Do you think SROs will help this? What is the resolution there?
Okay, that would be another good one for Mike. And Mike, you probably should stand next to me.
Okay, yes, sir. So you're correct. The Auditor General conducted an audit of initially 47 schools throughout the state around their emergency operation plans. Since 2001, schools in this state have been required to have EOPs, emergency operation plans. The standards for those plans are jointly created by the Arizona Department of Education and the Department of Emergency and Military Affairs. Of the 47 schools that were audited, 3 didn't have a plan at all. There were 44 that were presented to the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. None technically, I will say, passed. There's 30 minimum standards. The highest score was 17. As I provided testimony on that, one of the key points that I tried to drive home is that these standards have varying degrees of importance. For example, one of the standards indicates that rosters must be printed out daily. You can imagine for some of our high schools, that's a heavy lift to do that because there are changes. What I can tell you is I have 2 school preparedness specialists whose job is to work with the schools to enhance those plans. And 2, for a state this size, is not a lot. Part of what we're asking for right here is to add 4 additional school preparedness specialists to that. But this is where the school districts help us. You have Surprise that's represented here today, that you have the Dysart School District has asked us to come in, and on September 10th, my team will go there to sit with all of the schools to work on their plans. So little by little, we are working to do that. As part of the legislation also, these schools are not required to just attest that they have plans, but for grant funding going forward, they must actually submit those plans to us for review.
Okay, so that's something you guys are actively working on, is making sure these schools do meet these standards.
Correct, to the extent that we can with 2 school preparedness specialists, yes.
Thanks. Yes.
It appears to be that one of the biggest problems of security in schools is about drugs related and gangs related. So how are you planning to address that problem?
Well, as you know, we're a local control state, so that is something that districts need to do. We have occasionally been critical of districts that did not report violations to the police. But we can provide the police officers, we can provide the equipment, but as far as disciplining students and reporting them to the police where appropriate, we have to rely on our school boards. Anybody else?
This may be a very straightforward question, but do you guys really believe that adding SROs to schools can prevent issues maybe like what happened at Maryville, like you said at Mountain Point, where a student was found with a weapon? Do you guys believe that this is the set in stone answer to what can really prevent these type of issues in schools?
Yeah, we definitely do. Now in Maryville, unfortunately, the police officer got there in time to give first aid, but it wasn't enough to save the student. But we've had situations in other states, and we almost had the situation in Tucson, where people go in with a gun intending to kill multiple people. And we have to have a police officer there to stop them. And we had one, luckily, in Tucson, to stop somebody who would have killed 20 kids. So yes, we believe very strongly that that our kids deserve to have defense, just as the teachers and staff do, to have somebody there to defend them. There's nothing worse than things we read about in other states where the gunman invades, there's no one there to stop him. The principal, to try to save her students, runs at him barehanded and gets killed. There needs to be somebody who's able to shoot back at these kinds of people.
Superintendent, talk about just the difficulties. What happens when the attacker is, as it was at Maryville, a student?
Well, hopefully the policeman is there or can get there in time. In the case of Maryville, tragically, he got there and he gave first aid, but it wasn't enough to save his life. But in other situations, it may well be that the police officer could save lives. Anybody else?
Relating to funding, last month, Superior Court judge ruled that the state legislature is not meeting its obligations to fund repairs and facilities. Do you agree with that, and what comes next?
It's outside my jurisdiction. The building, I was actually in the legislature when those bills were passed. The building was given to a totally separate agency. Our responsibility is what goes on in the classrooms, but building is a different jurisdiction, so I'm not going to stick my oar in on that.
Does building repair and building facility maintenance also apply to security then?
Well, as I mentioned, we got a bill passed that says that if there's money left over after we provide all the police officers that are asked for, we can help them with the equipment they need. Anybody else? If not, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it very much.
You might want to wait a few minutes before the media to clear out.